Students, today I am here with House Mouse Part 2 Literature. Mrs. Melody believed had the mouse been a cat, he could have fetched the neighbors, and if he were a dog, he could have barked and howled till somebody came. If he were a parrot, he could have shouted for help. But she didn't think a mouse could do anything at all. The mouse did not want to let her down. He ran out into the garden and looked around on the clothes line. Mrs. Melody's dusters were blowing in the wind. Then the mouse had a great idea. He ran up the past that held the line and began to nibble at the dusters. He bit till the first duster looked like a big edge. Then he attacked the next and nibbled it into an E. The third duster became an L and the last a P. HELP, help, hung on the line, waving in the wind. The next door neighbor saw it from her window. Something is wrong at Mrs. Melody's, she shouted. In a minute, everybody was running to Mrs. Melody's house. The mouse went back underneath the sink. Soon the doctor arrived and then the ambulance. Mrs. Melody was taken to the hospital. Mrs. Melody has broken her leg. Everyone was kind to her, and the neighbors brought her sweets and fruits and flowers. Mrs. Melody began to smile when she saw them coming, and she also smiled at the nurse and the doctors and even at the other patients. She became quite a popular lady in the ward. But what we can't understand is how you ever hung that message on the clothesline when your leg was broken. The neighbors said, if we had not seen it, you might be lying there now. What message? Asked Mrs. Melody. They brought her the dusters and laid them out on her bed. Help, she read. I believe it was my mouse, said Mrs. Melody. Then Mrs. Melody came home. People came visiting the house. Mrs. Melody introduced all of them to the mouse. Mrs. Melody and her mouse became good friends and she took great care of him. She respected him and thought he was cleverest of all the mice. She kept the nibbled dusters as a proof of this. Thank you, students.